It's very obvious that the Detroit Pistons are having a terrific NBA season. In fact, they're having a historical NBA season. But for some reason out there, the Detroit Pistons still have some haters out there that are in denial. And as a matter of fact, the Detroit Pistons have some big haters out there that are still in denial. And the big hater that I'm referring to is none other than Shaquille O'Neal. So you guys know it's that time of the year. The NFL is not over. The NBA now has national televised games every Tuesday and Thursdays on TNT. And when TNT is on, that means Shaq is on, and he's talking during the pregame, postgame, and he's also talking during halftime. So last night on TNT, Shaq, it seemed like he was giving praise to the Detroit Pistons, and then he made a very blatant, embarrassing mistake, saying that Chauncey Billups was doing a great job with the team, when in reality, we all know Chauncey Billups, he coaches the Portland Trail Blazers and not the Detroit Pistons. So it's JB Bickerstaff that actually coached the Pistons, and once again, we thought that was public knowledge, and everyone knows that. Shaq goes on to talk for a little bit longer before his colleagues correct him, and I believe last night it was Candace Parker and, forgive me, I don't know the host's name that fills in for Ernie when he's not available, but they corrected Shaq, let him know that JB Bickerstaff coaches the Detroit Pistons, and they kind of laughed at him, and I think out of embarrassment, Shaq goes and tries to, disrespect the Detroit Pistons like they're beneath him, because he goes on to say, like, oh, I don't watch the Detroit Pistons, so I really wouldn't know. So I thought that was very crazy, very ignorant, very disrespectful of Shaq. And then there's also another clip out on his podcast. This just resurfaced on March 10th. The date is this video on Twitter, but they were talking about it when the Detroit Pistons were on their 7-game winning streak, and they were 6 games above 500 at the time. And the host of his podcast was trying to give credit to the Detroit Pistons, trying to give them praise for the turnaround that they had. But then Shaq goes around and he says that the Detroit, and I'm paraphrasing here, he says that the Detroit Pistons are boring. He says that they're not going to be winning the championship this season, and then he goes on to say that he's not giving them praise for being 6 games over 500. So once again, I think Shaq was out of line here. He's been very ignorant and very disrespectful. And I wonder, I've been listening to Shaq for years now, since I was a teenager, before I started doing this on YouTube, and I never just thought he made any basketball sense. And it amazes me how great Shaq was at the game of basketball, because his basketball IQ, in my opinion, at least from what I heard him say when he's talking about basketball in the public space on his podcast on TNT, whenever he talks about basketball, I promise you 95% of the time it doesn't make any logical sense, just like what he just said about the Detroit Pistons. Because if you've been watching the Detroit Pistons, unlike Shaq, I think in my personal opinion, I think the Detroit Pistons, for a multitude of reasons, I think they're one of the most entertaining teams in basketball, and I think they're making the game of basketball beautiful once again. And I think this has Shaquille O'Neal very upset, because if I'm not mistaken, we did put some belt to him back in 2004 when we beat them 5-1 in the NBA Finals. So maybe that's where that hostility is coming from. But when we looking at the Detroit Pistons, I think they're so entertaining for so many reasons. And the number one thing that I look at, if you've been watching the Detroit Pistons since last season, they almost each and every night, they're getting the opposing team's best shot. Because last year when they went on the winning streak, and I know it was out of line for Kyle Kuzma to say what he said, saying that nobody wants to be that team, which was true, but it's just that Kyle Kuzma was on another sucky team, and he didn't have no business saying that. But nonetheless, nobody did want to be that team that lost to the Detroit Pistons, that broke that, be the team that they break that ugly losing streak to. So since last year, the Detroit Pistons, they've been getting opposing teams' best shot, and it's giving this young team, it's giving them a real chip on their shoulders. They really didn't appreciate that. They didn't appreciate the way that they were being ridiculed by the internet, being ridiculed by the NBA media last season. So they've carried that chip on their shoulders into next season, and not into this current season. And now that they're a more competitive ball club, They're talking to opposing teams. They're stirring things up. They're giving us some very heated interactions on the basketball court. And if you're any type of competitive person, that's the type of stuff that you like. That's the type of stuff you want to see when you turn on your TV, when you're watching a game of basketball. You want to see teams bringing the best out of each other. And I think every time I turn on the TV and I'm seeing the Detroit Pistons, they play a team, they're bringing that energy they're bringing that competitive, fierce energy every night, and it's very contagious. So I think they're very entertaining in that aspect, and I think if Shaq turned them on, I think he would actually enjoy that. And then also, it's just so many different parts of this roster that makes them entertaining. And of course, it starts with their superstar. And yes, I'm calling him, well, he might not be a superstar yet, but he's knocking on the door of becoming a superstar, and that's Cade Cunningham. But he is such a refreshing basketball player. And before we get into how appealing of a young NBA All-Star that Cade Cunningham is, I just want to give credit to the terrific season that he's had so far. His All-Star caliber season, his All-NBA caliber season. He's averaging damn near 26 points per game. He's top 3 in the NBA in assists, only behind Trae Young and Jokic, right at number 3 at 9 assists per game. And then he's also going out there and he's grabbing 6 rebounds per game. And what's been so impressive about Cade Cunningham this season, in my opinion, is how efficient he's been from the field. He's knocking down 46% of his total field goals per game. He's 35% from behind the three-point line, and he's 85% from the free throw line. So it's been a terrific season so far with Cade Cunningham. And when we talk about his game, what we're seeing visually, there's not many more players, and I put all bias to the side. It's not because I live in the city of Detroit and I'm a Detroit Pistons fan, but I genuinely look forward to watching Cade Cunningham play. And he's just a rare type of basketball player. We don't see players his size. People don't realize how big he is playing the point guard position. He's 6'6", and he's 230 pounds, and he's a lean 230 pounds as well. That's one thing that he's done since he's gotten into the NBA. He's continuously to add muscle to his frame, and we've seen how it has paid off for him this season, and that's another thing that makes him so entertaining. Now, Cade Cunningham, he's an athletic basketball player, but he's not. His athleticism doesn't give him an advantage as opposed to other players' athleticism. So it's very fun watching him get to spots on the basketball court, because it's purely off him knowing how to handle the basketball. It's purely off him knowing how to change gears and how to change pace, when to accelerate, when to decelerate, and then he has a great hezzy shot fake. So he knows how to do all these things to get to any spot he wants to on the court. He has a back to the basket game, which is also very underrated, but he has a post game. He has terrific footwork, and then he's a great finisher around the rim. And one thing about Cade Cunningham, when he's going downhill, he's not looking to draw the foul. He's looking to finish the layup and get an and one. And he's still a young player. He's still fighting for the ref's whistle, but he's definitely starting to earn it, because he gets downhill and he attacks with ferocity. He's not looking to draw a foul, but he's looking to get the and one and then get the whistle. So I love all of these things about Cade Cunningham when it comes to his ability to get to spots on the basketball court and score the basketball. But what you gotta love about Cade Cunningham, as dangerous as he is a scorer, he's just as dangerous as a passer. And this also goes into making the Detroit Pistons overall as a team that's so appealing to watch, because now Cade Cunningham, he has some terrific weapons around him, and we see how great of a quarterback he is. He's had some very high assist games so far this season. Like we said not too long ago, he's top 3 in the NBA in assists, and he could be a very flashy passer at times. And when the Detroit Pistons get out in transition, it's some must-see basketball. They have some high flyers on the basketball team. Asar Thompson, he's had some crazy lobs, some crazy dunks this season. Jalen Duren has had plenty of crazy dunks dunks and crazy oops this season. Ron Holland has gotten out on the fast break. Malik Beasley has gotten above the rim a couple times. So the Detroit Pistons have so many highlight plays from Cade Cunningham dishing out to all these weapons that he had that has been performing so well this season. So that's why I think, the Detroit Pistons, despite what haters like Shaquille O'Neal have to say, I think they've been extremely entertaining this season because they bring out that competitiveness within both teams. So that's what I really love the most about this Detroit Pistons team. But that's what I want to talk about with you guys today. If you enjoyed, please leave a like, comment down below if you agree or disagree, and then subscribe for more weekly content. We do this all the time, man, and that's curtains.